Hey, welcome back to our special two-parter episode.
Our first two-part episode.
Our second part of our first two-part episode. So if you want to get caught up, make sure you watch last week's episode where we kind of went into the stages of couples therapy and really began to explore all the dyads and some of the stereotypes that Nikki comes across when she's dealing with couples therapy, because this episode's going to be about applying those principles, and we're going to be doing some role playing. So you can honestly jump right in. I imagine it's still going to be entertaining, but if you want to add some context, make sure you listen to the previous episode first.
Let us know if you guys like this part where we kind of illustrate the concepts. And I work on my social anxiety and Preston works on his acting skills. We have fun doing them, and I think it can be helpful to make the material come alive, or at least be weird enough that you remember it. But let us know if you like it. We did it a little bit with motivational interviewing.
It will be weird.
It will be weird.
That's out of the question. It's if it's adaptive weird is the question.
Yeah, it's weird in like a fun, cute way.
yeah, in like a chill, nonchalant,
educational
like
way.
we're whatever kind of way.
We're really chill about it and not worried.
Okay, enough stalling. Let's roll the episode. And welcome back to How to Be Patient, where we have Nikki Haddad, and she's going to be talking to us about different pairings, right? That's what you want to talk about next, Margaret?
Yes, sure. Let's talk about different pairings. So there's a lot less to talk about here in terms of details of this, because the couples can look so different. But I think that, just to kind of summarize how I think about it, I'm looking for where the couple is as a couple, but then also as individuals. And you can imagine that it starts to get complex because, first of all, every couple is different. The dynamics of every couple is different, but also they can kind of move and oscillate between the session, during the session, and kind of within themselves as well. So it can kind of be hard to put your finger exactly on where a couple may lie, but generally we see a few common stages in the couples that present to therapy.
Like nurse firefighter.
Yes, exactly.
And teacher cop.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right on the money. Right on the money.
From?
Okay. Yeah, I read a little bit beforehand. But no, sorry, please continue.
Tell. So I would think largely the most common couple dynamic that we see is symbiotic. And this tends to occur from chronic failed attempts at differentiation. So Preston, when you were talking earlier about having relationship experience where maybe you try to differentiate, but then your partner doesn't like it so much and tries to pull you back in through conflict, through whatever it is, that leads to these different types of symbiotic pairings. And the two most common ones are hostile and dependent, where each member of the couple takes on one of those roles, although again, they can flip-flop.
So are these qualities of symbiotic? So it's like hostile symbiotic, dependent symbiotic?
Yeah. Correct. So these are subtypes of symbiotic. And the two main subtypes are hostile and dependent, and then conflict avoidant. And even within the conflict avoidant, there's more subtypes, which is either very friendly and superficial and smiley, or very tension-filled. Like you could cut the tension with a knife in a room with those patients, and there's not a lot of talking or emotion sharing. Even though the hostile sounds very difficult to work with, I would argue that conflict avoidant is extremely difficult as a couples therapist.
It's like there's nothing to it reminds you of an individual therapy patient where it's like every time they come in, it's like, how are you doing? I'm good. Work's been the same. Like that there's many things that can cause that, but kind of that, like it's harder to get into someone who's sort of walled off than when the emotion's right there.
Yes.
Yeah, like surgery is hard enough as it is, but if I can't even like get into the abdomen,
like where is the OR?
Like, yeah, I don't even know.
Yes, I know. I can relate to that feeling in individual therapy of like almost wanting to pull your hair out. Like, give me something. And that when we see it in couples, it tends to be an indication that this is going to be pretty hard work because both members have a lot of work to do in terms of coming into themselves and being able to express their needs.
Mm-hmm. So when you have multiple failed attempts at differentiation, does it tend to be like one and one, the other trying to pull away consistently, or does it kind of oscillate back and forth where one tries to differentiate, they fail, come back, the other tries to differentiate, and then they fail and come back? Of those two kind of like dynamics, which do you see more?
Yeah. Of the two, it tends to be one person who's trying over and over and over and over again, and another person who is just really stuck in symbiosis, usually because of some type of trauma history. In my experience, there's just something all too threatening about reaching for more independence. And as you can imagine, that leads to a lot of resentment on behalf of the couple, the member of the couple that's trying so desperately to differentiate.
What I'm not hearing you say is the internet's favorite couple to discuss, which is avoidant and anxious attachment. And I wonder how you think. I know you consume on TikTok. I wish you would make videos and talk, but took me 4 years to start talking into a mic. So what do you make of that? I know that's like a different body. It's in some ways different, some ways similar.
Yeah.
When people is this like the avoidant anxious dynamic? And what do you think about that term as a couples therapist?
No, I actually, I really appreciate bringing attachment theory into the room. A lot of patients tend to be much more familiar with that language as well. And from an attachment perspective, I mean, that's again, right on the money. I feel like the person trying to differentiate tends to be the more avoidant partner. And then the person who's sticking in symbiosis tends to be more of the anxious partner. And what is anxious attachment really? I mean, to me, feels a little bit about being scared of the person leaving you, right? That's like what the crux of it is. And so I could imagine that seeing your partner trying to differentiate would be very threatening because it would elicit that feeling in you as a more anxiously attached person.
And then that kind of prompts me to think about another dyad, I guess now through the lens of personality, the personality clusters. So like the borderline narcissist dyad, where someone with BPD maybe has a pretty unstable concept of self. And so they perceive the differentiation of their partner as almost abandonment. And that kind of triggers them to bring them back in.
Yeah, absolutely. Whereas a more narcissistic person is much less focused on the other person because they're so internally preoccupied and much more interested in that internal space.
Yeah, and they may see like that that person's attachment is almost like a threat to their grandiose idea of self.
Right.
So they may almost want to push back towards differentiation.
I mean, couldn't you all? I feel like sometimes, like when people talk about the like dynamic between like a more narcissistic personality type with a more like anxious, dependent, borderline, like is there also something that could be like this person who has a more mutable sense of self for whatever reason, like complements this idea of the narcissistic centrality of like being at the center of the world, like that someone who's like, I don't feel connected to a sense of myself. And so in some ways it's anxiety relieving to be with someone who insists they're the center of the world and I'll make them the center of my world. And for the narcissistic personality, it's like, as long as they don't try to control me, then this actually is coherent with my worldview.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting to think about that and the common pairings that we see in all these different dyads and why they may exist. And it's clearly serving both members of the couple, even if it doesn't seem like it from the outside. I think that anyone who wants to stay in symbiosis must be doing so for a reason. You know, it's this desperate attempt to just hold on to this comfortable space. And it's not safe. The world has taught that person that it's not safe to go beyond that. And that's where, again, terms like codependence come up here more colloquially of what does it mean to just need that person all the time.
It's really interesting to think about viewing the other person's emerging individuality as a threat or as abandonment. And I guess it takes a lot of, I guess, to use the Miller stages again, object constancy, to be able to
Mhm.
identify that this person may have a desire to express themselves as an individual and also stay in a relationship with me,
Mm.
that these things aren't mutually exclusive. And it's really hard to hold that dialectic in the air, especially if you've never been
Yes.
able to like have that modeled for you or kind of develop that within yourself.
I totally agree. And what I'll say about that in terms of the modeling is that a lot of like we talked about earlier, shows and movies and all of the media that we consume tells us that actually that's not what we should aspire to. And if our partner wants to go to get a meal with a friend or spend time with their coworkers after work, that's not a good sign. And that actually that means they don't care about me and they don't love me and they're going to leave me. When in reality, in my eyes, that's the marker of a very healthy relationship because this person is prioritizing themselves and their partner. Because losing yourself in a relationship will lead to disaster over time. It just will.
Are there any other common pairings that you mentioned symbiosis or symbiotic, maybe symbiotic, differentiating or trying to and then failing. Are there any others that you see commonly present in couples therapy?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the most common ones tend to be the earlier stages. So, symbiotic differentiating, where there's one member that has differentiated or is trying to at least, and the other one is stuck. We talked about that. And then there's symbiotic and practicing. So, again, one member is still in symbiosis, the other one is on to stage 3 and they're practicing. And this tends to be obviously more tension filled because of the stark difference between the stages. And then sometimes we'll see differentiating, which is actually kind of fun to see as a couples therapist because each member is reaching a point where they're recognizing the importance of finding themselves again and still wants to work on the relationship and just trying to see what that looks like, what this new dynamic looks like. Very, very rarely will we see other dyads. Sometimes we do, but we tend to see people who are struggling.
What's like a common made up but like complaint, like a differentiating couple would come to therapy with?
Mm. Yeah, I think someone who maybe they're prioritizing work. You said differentiating symbiotic?
Differentiating.
Double D's.
Okay. The double D's. Very professional, yes. I think that might look like, let's say, okay, I think a common area that might be actually is a couple that recently got married or is thinking of getting married. And so they know that their lives are going to merge, but also their careers are taking off. Let's say in both directions, someone just entered this new job. The other person either is doing well in their career, but wants to start this new hobby. And so they're spending less time together. And that's a little scary for both of them because they're like, oh my gosh, we're about to enter into this marriage and I hardly see my partner. And we're spending all this time alone. And what does this mean? And so that might be an example of a type of couple that you would see of wanting to kind of tighten things up and understand themselves as a couple before they enter into such a binding thing, such as marriage. I think anyone really going through adulthood is going to reach that stage at some point in a couple, right? Assuming that there's not something like really, really limiting their ability to move through symbiosis, that it's natural that at some points we want to find ourselves within a couple.
Is there a path where I'm thinking of like couples where they're like, we've been married, we like our relationship was different before we got married and then we got married and had a kid and like actually made it through that well, but like day-to-day life has just made it so we don't spend very much time together. And like, is that differentiating or like, do you know what I'm saying? I feel like that's like a stage,
Yeah.
well, at least it's in like popular media, this like idea of like, oh, like we're married and we're more like roommates than we are like lovers. Like, and I feel like sitcom and like drama TV shows that would like come up.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I see that a lot. Again, because I work a lot with people in the perinatal period. So I see a lot of postpartum women who are navigating this new stage of life with their partner and a baby. And it's really, you can imagine, it's really hard to define that in stages because there's quite literally a third person now. And, how much energy and time each parent gives to the baby is a whole other dyadic relationship. And so breaking that down becomes really complex.
And the baby's going through the molar stages of development too at the same time.
Exactly.
So you
Quite
can be like,
literally.
we're at symbiosis, differentiation.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going through the Erickson stages of development if we just want to throw a whole nother wrench into the mix.
And
yeah.
all the stages.
One other question I have before we do our little cosplay.
I can't wait.
How in cisgender heterosexual couples do you see are there ways that gender norms or traditional roles make people more or less likely to move in these stages?
Yes, such a good question. I think heteronormativity generally is a problem. I think it's impossible for any person, by the way, whether they identify as heterosexual or not, to not have adopted certain heterosexual scripts. And I think that gender roles come into play always.
Can we define heteronormativity?
Yes.
Because I think that this is kind of something that is a bit of a buzzword, and I feel like people almost use this as fodder to kind of push back against wokeism, or kind of people who are, I think, trying to appear morally superior. So what it, because I think a layperson may interpret the statement heteronormativity as a problem as an attack on being heterosexual, but that's not what you mean. You say that, right? What is heteronormativity and why is that a problem?
Yeah, it's an important question. My kind of basic definition of it is that the assumption that heteronormativity is the norm, right? That is the only normal and natural expression of sexuality. Not that it's not okay, but the idea of that heteronormativity culture is so pervasive because people in heterosexual relationships tend to be looked at as the norm, and anything that is separate from that is a problem.
So the default ordinary human relationship is between a man and a woman, and then along that, the implied gender roles that follow.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
Man is the breadwinner, and that's almost like the rule, and anything else is a violation of the rule.
Right. And I think even nowadays, when we know that there's more understanding about gender roles and women have much more power than we've ever had before, I think it's impossible to fully disentangle ourselves from those roles. For example, if we think about how heteronormativity comes into play in sexuality. In heterosexual relationships, it's very, very common for both members of the couple to assume that the role of initiation should fall onto the man, for example. And that can lead to a whole host of issues, or whatever you want to call it, and be quite limiting too, in terms of that couple's sex life, right? Or roles at home and having to be the caregiver or be a mother, or have to mother your partner in some ways too, as a woman, can impact people's relationships very, very deeply. And so part of my role as a sex and couples therapist is to help disentangle some of these heteronormative scripts that couples come in with.
Because they're causing them pain.
Yeah.
Because they're causing them pain.
The patriarchy hurts everyone.
Yeah, I think it's just so limiting on everyone that it makes expression be so. I mean, this is we can't. We'll do an episode on feminist literature books some other time.
Well, I mean, ultimately, heteronormativity, homonormativity, if you were to create that as a concept, it's a box that someone has to live within. And when you put people in boxes, you kill nuance. And it's really hard for people to live as liquid identities who have faults and vices and virtues inside of these very rigid boxes. And so it's not that there's anything wrong with a man seeking his identity as a breadwinner and a woman wanting to care for the house and cherish the children or those things. But it's if you make these concrete boxes that they have to live in, then it becomes a problem when people try to find identity outside of those boxes.
One of the phrases that I heard a lot early on in my supervision is the phrase all sex is queer sex. And I remember being like, what does that mean? I never heard it before. Now I love it. And I say it all the time. And the idea behind it is that queer people have not had a choice but to step outside of those heterosexual scripts, right? They don't have a choice in the matter. And queer people tend to have better sex for that reason. And in many ways, they aren't dealing with the same kinds of heteronormative issues in relationships either. And so the idea that all sex is queer sex, even if you're, heterosexual, you're cisgender, whatever, why don't we, as you're saying, Preston, take a step out of the box a little bit and start to see ourselves beyond these roles and into the box. Yes.
Yeah, just sit with that Margaret.
I can't.
She's just blocking you out.
I just regret. I'm in practicing, and you're I'm trying to defuse. Okay, we're gonna take a quick break, and then we will come back, and we will be cosplaying as a fictional couple coming to Nikki for a brief. We'll say it's the second or third, so you're not doing all your intake questions, but you don't super know us, so you can ask some basic questions. We will be right back. Okay, so we're gonna give you just a little bit. I didn't want you to be able to prepare for this. So, are you familiar with The Simpsons at all?
My dad used to love The Simpsons.
Okay, so we will be Magnolia's here. We will be working, which is great. She can be Maggie, the baby. We are going to be coming into your office to work on a problem that we are having as a couple. I will actually be Homer and Preston will be Marge. So I'm looking at the time. We'll do this for somewhere between 5 to 8 minutes, depending on what feels natural, and to kind of get in a little bit of what we're doing. So, let's see.
Here we go. Okay. So this is session 2 or 3?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And we just sat down.
Hello.
And you just sat down.
I'm not doing a voice.
Hi. This is going to be hard, guys. Okay. How are you both doing today?
I mean, I'm good. I just got a beer with the guys before I came here, having some donuts after this.
Everything's been going, it's all going fine. Really, I think, yeah, no, nothing to complain about. I don't know. I'm not going to do the impression.
No, please do the impression.
Please do the impression.
So good.
Okay.
So everything's fine?
I mean, you're the one who wanted to come to these.
Well, fine. If you want to consider spilling 14 ounces of beer on the couch last night, fine. And vomiting on the steps, then everything is really, it's all fine.
I mean, I spilled the beer on the couch because I fell asleep. Yeah, I mean, I work hard every day, and I'm sue me.
And homie, no one's saying that you're not working hard. It just takes a little bit of follow through to not drop an entire case of beer on the couch every time you come home.
Well, you got mad at me when I went to the bar to see the guys.
So you brought the bar home and decided to empty it all out on the couch, and then whatever bar was left inside of your stomach, you're like, oh, let's just put that onto the steps too. And while I'm at it, I'll eject it out into the bathroom at 2 a.m. because I guess nobody else sleeps around here.
So let's take a quick pause. I'm sensing a lot of anger in the room.
Wow, you're an astute therapist. You picked up on anger from this? This is what we're fucking paying for?
Okay,
Any
honey,
other
honey,
observations,
honey. She's doing her best, all right? Listen.
Sorry.
Being a therapist.
Marge, tell me what's going on in your head right now.
I'm overwhelmed. I think Bart got in trouble at school again, and I feel like I'm a pancake on most days, but today I'm a crepe. I'm just spread a little thin.
You're feeling spread thin.
Yeah.
I didn't know, honey, that Bart was... What happened with Bart?
Well, he rode his skateboard through the halls of the school, as usual, but then he tried to do a kickflip over a fire truck, and he got his underwear stuck in the ladder, and then the fire truck drove off to a fire, and all of the firefighters had to climb over him while he was hanging over the flames, and it made the front page, and now he's banned from school. You were at the bar.
Oh.
That's why you didn't see any of
Okay,
it.
well, you didn't tell me, so how am I supposed to know?
You see, he takes no responsibility for everything. All responsibility for all information coming in and out of the house.
How am I supposed to take
is up to
responsibility
Preston.
for anything if
I
you
mean,
won't tell
Marge.
me?
Let's slow down. Homer, it sounds like you haven't been around to notice some of the things that are happening within your family. Would you agree with that?
Another genius observation.
You get what it's like. I mean, imagine being around someone who's being like this. And by the way, she hasn't always been like this. You can imagine
what?
like how you're being right now. Like, you're being rude to our therapist who you wanted to see anyway. So I don't know why you're the one putting up a fight. And when I get home, I'm stressed and I want to connect with you. I want it to be like things used to be before Bart was older. And I come home and you're immediately mad at me. And so sometimes I drink a little bit because it makes it easier to be yelled at, frankly. Or I don't want to be at home because I'm being yelled at all the time. It's what it feels like.
You're drinking to escape.
Yeah. I mean, I've always liked a beer. Okay? I'm no Ned Flanders. That's always been true, but now you want me to not drink and change who I am and also what? Just like let you yell at me all day?
What do you think about this, Marge?
You're right. This was my idea to come into therapy in the first place, and I'm sorry I was critical of you. I don't know. It makes me really sad to think that Homer wants to escape.
What makes you feel sad about that?
Well, I feel like I should be his home base, his landing pad, not somewhere where he needs to get away from. It's it's the antithesis of everything I hope to be as a housewife.
What did you hope your relationship might look like?
I wanted us to be a team, and the way I see it, we have a lot of things that we have to accomplish, and not everyone's pulling their weight, rather than a prison. So if the home is a prison, then something's wrong, and I guess I'm contributing to it. I don't know. I just feel so bad.
You're feeling guilty.
I mean,
Yeah, like I did something wrong. And I guess it's just all my fault.
It's not all your fault. Working with Mr. Burns I hate it. I hate it every day. And I come home and I'm not... She's not mad every time I come home. But I don't know.
I could do a better job most days.
Okay, where do you
You guys are cured.
Yeah, like,
You literally like...
I know, I had to be literally pull back and be like, wait, you need to stay in character. You're not a therapist. Great work. Preston, accent number 2. He did can you do the Scottish accent for a second? Please?
That was so funny. I was trying to not
actually an
laugh
okay
the whole
Marge
time.
impression? Because I was...
It was so good.
Okay.
And also your aggression at the therapist is so on. That's every... They're like, oh, very smart observation. It's such a common thing we get.
Wow,
I think like what's funny about couples work is that anything you say to one member of the couple, especially something that's validating to one member, is going to kind of offend the other one a lot of the time.
Mhm.
And so you tend to be the bad guy a lot. So you guys did a remarkable job. It was great.
So
Uh,
what sort of things do you notice? Like, oh wait, sorry, Preston, you were going to ask something.
I know. I was just trying to see if I could load my Scottish accent.
Okay, you work on that. What as a couple? So you said like some of the things are very common. Like, what
Yeah.
does this? If we were in your clinic, what in your mind are you starting to formulate as the things that are
Mhm.
not working for us or stages?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, I'm feeling like Marge is more stuck in symbiosis, and Homer is trying but failing to differentiate. And it feels a little bit like this pattern has been going on for a long time. I'm also picking up on heteronormativity, and what expectations should be around what should a homemaker's life look like in relation to their family. The kind of aloofness of the father, again, goes into kind of heteronormativity culture as well. I had no idea. And the unequal kind of burden carrying parts of that relationship were pretty evident too. So starting there, those were kind of my initial observations. Again, you guys both became these like beautiful Nirvana-like couple.
And then we
By
solved
the end,
it.
you're like, you know what? You're right. Like I could work on these things. I was impressed with how quickly you got there.
I think. I mean, we could externalize till the cows come home. We just had to expedite.
Yeah, we could have stayed in that. What is it when the acting? That method acting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Preston could have put on a blue wig. Could have been a whole thing.
Yeah.
What was it like for you, both of you?
I was really just trying to think about what would piss off a homemaker who felt neglected. Like
Mhm.
I wasn't even trying to think about it like psychotherapeutically. I was really
Mhm.
just trying to like shut my brain off and be like, okay, I'm pissed off. I'm alone. I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of like we used to watch The Simpsons a lot when I was younger. So like, what actually is true to the character of like they are in this like very traditional like blue collar depiction of 2000s like married life.
Mhm.
But he's also very tender with her a lot of the time. So I was like trying to fight my own like therapy podcast instincts of like how I just as a person would respond, but then also being like, okay, but he wouldn't get so mean at her. Like they don't fight that much, but he does drink and he's kind of a like, I don't know person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and Marge tended, I remember in the show, I haven't watched it in a long time, but Marge does get more activated and kind of more reactive than Homer, and so I definitely saw that coming out. And then Homer trying to do his piece to calm things down and actually bring the energy back down and feel more cohesive, even though he tends to be more of the troublemaker in the relationship.
What kind of, before we started to fix ourselves, what kinds of things do you feel like this kind of couple in couples therapy works on? Or like if you were thinking about even what they work on as individuals in the relationship, like what would you direct Homer towards slowly over time and Marge towards?
Yeah, I think, I mean, of course, this was 5 minutes, and
You can't
normally at the
steer us.
beginning, well, apparently I did, so.
That's true.
But, normally in a couple session like this, I would allow the couple to, we call it the fight of the week. Usually couples will come in with some kind of conflict that's happened over the past week. Not always. And we allow them to share that for a period and kind of provide validation when it's needed or warranted on both ends. And then trying to unpack the process that is more important than the content. So the kind of classic thing is, oh, my partner never unloads the dishwasher. It's so annoying. okay, well, what are we actually talking about here? Is it that your partner isn't able to recognize what you need before you say it? Is it that your partner isn't showing up as a father or a mother? Is it that your partner is more worried? Whatever. There can be so many different things kind of going on underneath the surface. So in this example, I would really be curious about what's actually happening when Homer is going to the bar. What's really going on for him and what's really going on for Marge when she's at home dealing with the kids, and unpacking that a little bit more, unpacking where they learned these things about themselves and the relationship, and then teaching them how to be better listeners is a really big part of the couple's work. We don't have time, but if we did, I would have done the initiator inquire exercise with the two of you, which is basically where I assign one of you the role of the initiator and you talk about a problem in the relationship. And the only job of the inquirer is to listen, summarize, and then ask questions to understand better what the initiator is saying. And couples are so bad at this. You would not believe how bad they are.
I can believe.
It's hard. It's hard to be a good listener. And so that's a really helpful skill for I would say almost all couples that come in.
I thought you were already identifying like Homer's escapism and Marge's perceived neglect. So I think like that would have been kind of like the course of their therapy would be like investigating Homer's like desire for escapism and then how it manifests for him, and maybe if there's a way for him to do it in a way that's more adaptive.
Right, because I think the escapism part of it, again, is not necessarily a bad thing. Like, it's not a bad thing for Homer to have other hobbies, but it's about doing it in a way that is not detrimental to the couple. If he's neglecting his duties at home, etc. Yeah, and allowing both people to kind of stay themselves in that process.
So I think that now's a good time to kind of move on to some of our questions that we have from listeners. So I know Margaret is usually the one that posts these questions on her Instagram, and we got a lot of interest this time.
We did have a lot of interest.
But I do think there were a lot of very similar themes. So my hope is as we go through these questions, we can answer multiple in one round.
Yeah.
One question someone submitted, also, by the way, for people submitting, yes, we're keeping these questions anonymous now, so that you can feel comfortable to ask anything and not get called out on the podcast if it's sensitive. This one is not that, but someone asked, if you're in a healthy relationship and it feels like things are going well, is there ever a use for couples therapy in that part of the relationship?
Yeah, I think I'm biased, but I think there's always a use. I think I have friends actually that have started couples therapy around the time of, again, getting married or before they have a kid, just to understand themselves as a couple better and their dynamics better. I don't think it's ever a wrong move. And I would actually argue that most couples probably start too late. So starting earlier could be a really important thing.
What do you mean by too late?
Starting 20 to 30 years too late, when the patterns have been there for a long time, and it's really hard to kind of backpedal and do the work. It's always possible. Like, it's never technically too late, but the couples can feel that it is, or one member of the couple can feel that it is.
So one question I had is kind of around the opposites attract phenomenon. So what are qualities or predictors of success or foreboding warning signs that you see in couples in symbiosis?
Couples that tend to be more successful tend to be more securely attached from an attachment perspective, and can tolerate differences in their couple. So couples, I think you don't have to enjoy doing all the same things, for example. I don't think that's necessarily a prerequisite for being successful. It does help to have some shared interests generally. So if someone likes running, but I like doing spin classes, we can both value fitness, right? That can be a shared value of ours, but it still allows us to do separate things. And so I think that couples that have similar values, who encourage each member of the couple to do their own thing and things together is kind of the recipe for success generally.
So the opposite would be like foreboding, almost
Yeah.
like warning signs that, you know, the couple's excited, they're happy in symbiosis, but you're like, oh, this is kind of a red flag for me as the therapist that I'm seeing, you know, that's probably a few miles down the road still.
Yeah, that would be, I think, a couple that is too codependent. So if I see someone, all of a sudden they lose all their friends and they only spend time with their partner, which is actually pretty common, interestingly. Like I've known multiple people where that happens.
Yeah, like
That's
I
usually
have
a red
friends,
flag.
friends who are female that say like some of their female friends, only are friends with them when they're not in a relationship, and then they go back to
Yeah.
disappearing as soon as they're in another relationship. I guess I just say that because I think I see it more commonly in women, but like guys, it can be the same way too. Like there are some men that are like, yeah, like they're not going to hang out, play sports, go lifting. When they have a girlfriend, they become like totally
hmm
preoccupied.
Yeah, I've seen it too. I've seen it. I've had friends that have gone through that. Absolutely. I think, again, this concept, this idea that people have that they have to give everything to their partner, and that's the indication of a perfect relationship, can be so damaging.
It's also social capital. Like to have I'm thinking about White Lotus. I don't know if either of you guys are watching it right now, but like in the White Lotus, this is not really spoilers because you weren't in the first episode. There's like a girl group of 3 women in their like late 30s, early 40s, I think. And one's divorced, one's in like a long-term, like traditional role marriage, and one is sort of newly married to like a younger hot guy who's an actor. And the way that that plays out in terms of what that means about their social capital and their value is so interesting in the show. And so I feel like it's like we're given those
Mhm.
models, but it's also like I feel like we've all had a friend who's like, I don't know if this happens for when straight men are talking, but they'll be like someone who's like suddenly everything's like, oh, my boyfriend says this, or like my boyfriend, or like suddenly 1 month into a relationship, it's like
Mhm.
we like this, and it's like, girl, where
Mhm.
are
Mhm.
you?
Yes. Yes, that's actually such a good example, Maggie. The we. So a huge red flag for me is if I have a friend and every text they send me has the word we in it. It's like, you don't have your own thoughts at this point? It would just be
Mm.
that would be so concerning to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think guys see having as a girlfriend as social capital in the same way.
Say more.
I don't know. Like I think if someone has a girlfriend, good for them. If they're single, they're not seen as any less than. I think it might actually be the opposite. Like dudes in relationships are like seen as like tied down or shackled, and they're not free, independent stags like the rest of the group. You know?
Wild stallions.
No,
No,
actually.
you're right.
Um,
You're right.
you know, like,
Yeah.
oh, he's not as cool. No, he can't participate in the shenanigans the way that he used to. So like in a lot of ways, like it's almost like a guy's willingly taking a loss, a social capital loss, I guess,
Yeah.
to get into a relationship. And I think a lot of the things that give guys social capital in this dynamic is having a lot of women lusting after you and being able
Mhm.
to take your pick. You know, someone who can
Mhm.
be this like Casanova womanizer. That's what's aspired. So
Right. And
so
that's probably why you see more women fall into the trap of giving their full selves to their partner in a way that could actually be hurtful, because maybe you're saying that societally that's more powerful almost in terms of
mhm.
social capital for women compared to men in straight relationships.
Yeah, because as a guy you're a bachelor, but as a woman you're like a spinster.
We've made progress, but not that much progress.
Mhm. Yeah,
Haven't
no,
had
It's
credit.
true.
We
it's
haven't
still
had
very
no fault
implicit.
divorce for
Yeah,
that long. We haven't had credit
yeah.
cards for that long. A couple of
It's
different
true.
people asked the same question of how do you as a couples therapist? I see this also people like talking about the show couples therapy or listening to Esther Perel being
Mm,
like, that person in the couple was obviously a da 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 da. Da. Why like
yeah.
isn't she a feminist? Why didn't she call it out? And so the question multiple times was how do you not take
Mm.
sides?
Oh, that's such a good question. Um, So my short answer to that is that Sometimes you do actually have to take sides in quotes, in that sometimes you are going to have to align more with one member of the couple than the other. And you have to just oscillate as the couples therapist. So sometimes the session can be more focused on one member of the couple and then the other session focused on the other. And you are going to offend people, but you can't actually align too much, or you're really damaging the work. And so, regardless of your own perspectives or feelings about the world, or even your own biases as a therapist, you really have to learn to put it aside, recognize what's coming up for you, just like you would in individual therapy, and try to be empathetic to both sides, which sometimes is easier said than done. It definitely can bring up dynamics and stir things up inside of you, but that's the job. That's the job.
What happens if you get a couple in couples therapy where there's like, I think one of the things I'm thinking about and that people ask this question about is like in the show couples therapy, there are a few couples that maybe there's like kind of strong personality or kind of flagrant like affairs or other mistreatment on one side and not on the other. And the question becomes, and especially for you, who I think knowing you and knowing kind of how you view things and that the, personal is political to some extent, people noting frustration of being like, okay, if someone's being like abused and you're seeing them in couples work, like ethically, how does that work? And I think you can think of extremes for that, but the really hard question is like in the middle. And I
Yeah.
wonder your thoughts on that as like an early career couples therapist, the ethics of that.
Yeah, another really good question. I mean, ethically, I, at this stage of my training and probably forever, don't work with couples where there is abuse happening. That's a prerequisite, and I make it very clear. And there also can't be substance use happening. It's just, you're not going to have a healthy couple in front of you ever,
So you wouldn't
if those things are happening. No, it's totally.
Are there any other like prerequisites or almost exclusionary criteria?
I give both members of the couple a couples contract to sign before we work together. And so, domestic abuse or any form of abuse is not tolerated. Substance use is not tolerated. Beyond that, nothing specific. They have to agree to sign the contract, which also says that if they were to end the marriage, if they're married, that they can't use me in courts or like anything that was said. So you kind of have to go in with clear boundaries as the therapist about things that you're comfortable and not comfortable with. You're asking like about the extreme, but also the less extreme cases too. And so in terms of the less extreme case, if I'm seeing a couple where one member is unfaithful, for example, and having physical affairs or sexual affairs with other people and the other isn't, it's usually not as simple as it sounds. I don't think that infidelity is always a deal breaker in couples, actually. And I think that oftentimes it has nothing to do with the couple itself and a lot to do with the individual. Not always, but that could be one reason that infidelity is happening. And Esther Perel talks a lot about this in her work and has really helped me see the complexity there. And there's also other ways that people can betray each other,
right,
aside from cheating,
right?
And so I think that I would just be curious about what else is happening behind the scenes if I were to see a couple like that.
Do we want to do one more question?
That's all for me.
Nikki, thank you so much for being on this episode. I know we kept you maybe longer than predicted. I also know you have a strict respected sacred bedtime routine of, because we text so Preston, Nikki, and I'll just text each other with various memes of like me at 9 p.m. and it's like melatonin, like a small cat in a bed, like
in a
robe, ready for workout tomorrow. Is there anything you want to put here in terms of where people can find you? I know that you have a private practice. You can mention that or not if you want to. We can cut this out. But is there anything you'd like to plug here in terms of your work or where people can connect with you if they want to?
Sure, I don't have much of a social media presence, but if you want to connect with me as a patient or for a speaking engagement, you can go to my website. It's just my name, so nikkihaddadmd.com. And it has my email there as well, so you can reach out to me there.
Haddad. I've been saying Haddad.
I have too.
Like a jabroni.
You can say it both ways. It's actually Syrian, and so Haddad is the right way to say it. But my grandpa Americanized it to Haddad, so I'm just used to saying Haddad. Either way is great.
Because in those it's Arabic then, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you always emphasize the first syllable, right? Haddad.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Wow.
I actually like Haddad more.
Yeah, Haddad. Nikki Haddad.
Haddad.
Haddad. Okay. Well, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being on the podcast. If you guys enjoy sending these questions and hearing us talk about them, please send them again. If you really want us to really badly want us to read them out, you can put a couple asterisks and then we'll
or you
give
can
it higher
put
priority.
in reviews as well. That helps us. It does. I'm sorry. We have to do this. We've been shy about being we need reviews, but
we need to plug more.
Helps us. And we're doing this as literal exposure therapy, talking about how you guys can help us as listeners. We're nearing the end of season 1 and it's been going well. But reviews always help us and help us be able to bring more people on like Nikki and our other guests to be able to bring their knowledge and wisdom to you.
Mm-hmm. And same if you have suggestions for guests or other topics, we'll happily investigate those and reach out to people. We're always looking to find new and interesting conversations. This is a safe place to do that, hopefully, most of the time. If you want to get in contact with us on social media, we're also going to be starting our own Instagram page. So we'll be having How to Be Patient Pod as a standalone. I know Margaret and I will still be promoting on our socials independent of that, but then we kind of want a single avenue or home base.
This is what we're creating, our third.
Yeah, exactly. And then I have a Patreon, and I'm going to be kind of back adapting that to include things from the podcast. And our hope is to start kind of rolling out some other episodes where Margaret and I just kind of play around with different topics and other things that are a little bit less formalized. So if you want to join for a live Q&A or other kind of discussions like that, keep an eye out for that in the future. If you want to look at our full episodes, they're always going to be uploaded on YouTube at It's Presro. Thank you again for listening. We're your hosts, Preston Roche and Margaret Duncan. Our executive producers are me, Preston Roche, Margaret Duncan, Will Flannery, Kristen Flannery, Aaron Corney, Rob Goldman, and Shanti Brooke. Our editor and engineer is Jason Portizo. Our music is by Omer Benzvi. To learn more about our program disclaimer and ethics policy, submission verification, and licensing terms, and our HIPAA release terms, go to howtobepatientpod.com or reach out to us at howtobepatient@human-content.com with any questions or concerns. How to Be Patient is a human content production. Thank you for watching. If you want to see more of us, or if you want to see, this is Lilac, she's my cat. She's going to be waving her hand at one of the floating boxes, which will lead to more episodes. Lilac, point to the other episodes. Lilac doesn't know what the internet is, but I swear they're there. They probably exist for real. But in the meantime, I'm just going to pet Lilac, and then I'm going to go dance in the background.